Welcome to CFRI's Cystic Fibrosis Community Voices, a video podcast series created by and for the cystic fibrosis community.
Hello, and welcome to CFRI's CF Community Voices, coming to you from our home studio in Palo Alto, California. I'm Sue Landgraf, Executive Director of Cystic Fibrosis Research Incorporated, CFRI, and I'm very pleased to welcome our viewers and listeners. We have a very special program ahead, but before getting started, I want to thank our generous sponsors, Vertex Pharmaceuticals, Chiesa USA, Gilead Sciences, Genentech, and Proteostasis Therapeutics. I also would like to note that no information presented in this podcast is intended for a patient's diagnosis or treatment. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thank you, and let's get started.
Hi everyone, I'm very excited to be here today talking with all of you. Thank you for inviting me, all the CFRI people. My name is Colleen Dunn and I'm from Stanford. I work in the Cystic Fibrosis Research Office, and I'm here to talk to you today about research participation, the basics, and a little bit beyond that. I have some objectives that I put together for you. I'd like to define a research study, help you understand why we do research studies, describe who can be a study participant, learn how you can become involved in the research process, and give you an introduction to the Stanford Research Center, because I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our terrific program at Stanford. So first of all, what is a research study? Well, according to the Food and Drug Administration, a research study is a scientific investigation of a potential treatment in a particular group in order to learn if that treatment will be of value in a larger, more general population. And I think it's important always to pause and think about where research starts. It really starts in laboratories, in cells, and in animals. This happens long before we ever get a research study to be tested in a human being. So I think it's important that we kind of talk about the types of research studies. There are interventional trials and observational trials. Interventional trials are when we give you a treatment, some type of intervention, or even a placebo, and test that intervention. And I think the most popular example today is the modulator treatments that we have. An observational study is when we just observe. We're not changing anything. And that could be a survey. We do lots of surveys in our group, or maybe just a one-time blood draw. In both instances, you're providing information to investigators, and you sign informed consents because you're part of a research study. So there are 4 phases of research, and I'd just like to briefly speak about that. The first phase is usually done in healthy volunteers, and the objective of a phase 1 study is just to see if that treatment is safe. I will say currently we're doing a few studies, phase 1 studies in CF patients, and this is because the FDA felt that it was more important to test CF patients rather than healthy volunteers. In phase 2, this is generally when you see drugs coming to patients with the condition or the disease, and the objectives at this level is to look for safety, optimal dosing, and also just look very preliminarily at effectiveness. In phase 3, we're again looking at patients that have the disease or the condition, looking for more effectiveness data in larger numbers of patients, and monitoring side effects. And when we look at phase 3 studies, when we're doing phase 3 studies, generally speaking, there are 2 phase 3 studies, and both of those studies have to have results that mimic one another. And they're usually done in many, many patients. Okay, phase 4 studies, we're looking at patients that are being prescribed the medication. We call these after-marketing studies. And these are when patients are taking these medications in tandem with all their other prescribed medications. And they could have many disease severities. So this is just collecting more information on safety. So next I'd like to talk about safety and oversight. When you participate in a research study, there are many organizations that protect you and provide safety. And this is a schematic of some of those. I'll just point out a few. At the very top, there's the FDA. They provide approval before we go forward. There's research coordinators like myself. They're the investigator and the institutional review boards. So let's talk about those. First and foremost, as I mentioned before, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, plays a very key role in all research. Sponsors must go to the FDA prior to starting any testing in any human being. They monitor the progress of the studies. They meet with sponsors throughout the lifetime of the drug. The FDA receives safety information during the course of the study, and they can come audit any research study at any research site at any time, during a study or after a study. We also have the institutional review boards, the IRBs, and they're local to us. Stanford has their own IRB. Studies are reviewed prior to enrolling patients. They review safety data as it becomes available, and they must approve of all study changes. They also look at the study progress, and they must renew the study annually. And they also can come audit at any time. We frequently have the IRB in our office. There's also the principal investigator. This is the physician, the PI as we call them. He's in charge of the study. He or she is in charge of the study. He or she signs an agreement with the FDA to conduct the study, and he is held to those standards on which he signs. That's called a 1572. He then delegates research-related procedures to various staff members. For example, research coordinators, other physicians, and pharmacists. All delegated team members must comply with the protocol and follow the rules. Research coordinators, that would be me. I'm your new best friend. That's what we always tell new participants. We're in very close contact. We conduct the study visits. We perform the study procedures. We track all changes in your symptoms and all changes in your medications. We provide a direct link to care. If you get sick in a study, we need to make sure you see a physician. If you need to see the clinic, we help facilitate that. If you need to see the PI, we facilitate that. Study monitors, they're hired by sponsors. They come to the sites and they monitor all of the data. They help ensure that the data is accurate and complete. We also have data safety monitoring committees, and they analyze safety data. They're sent unblinded information, and they make recommendations to the sponsor whether they should go forward with the study, stop it, or modify it. It's very interesting that cystic fibrosis has their own data monitoring committees that offers CF expertise and helps maintain a very high standard of safety. So why do we do research? Well, these are the important things that we need to talk about. Actually, sometimes we do research just to answer a specific research question that some physician may have. We want to help discover new therapies. We want to determine if drugs are safe and effective. And we want to help get new drugs approved in a timely fashion. Most importantly, we need to answer questions about whether drugs are safe and effective. And honestly, we can't do that without the help of CF patients. This is where you guys come into play. So who can be a research participant? You can be a participant if you meet all of the inclusion criteria related to a particular protocol. You also must meet all the exclusion criteria. You need to be able to come to all of the study visits. And those are mandated by the protocol, not by me. You need to be willing to comply with all the procedures. Maybe your thing isn't blood and this study is a blood study. Maybe that's not a good study for you. You need to share any changes in your medications, and I mean any changes. You took 2 extra Tylenol. I need to know that. You need to share your baseline symptoms and any changes in your baseline symptoms. You need to take all of the study medication as directed, and when you don't, you need to tell me. So most importantly, you need to make a commitment to the entire duration of the study. How can you become involved? Well, that's easy. You can ask anybody on your clinical team. You can ask your CF doctor. You can ask one of the research team members that's in your clinic just willing to talk to you about research. Actually, the CF Foundation has a great tool at cff.org. You can look for the clinical trial finder. You can find a study specifically for your genotype, your age, and your location. Or just call me. I'm always available. And there's my number. Please reach out to me. I'd like to share with you a little bit of information about a survey that we've been doing at Stanford since 2010, which has really been spearheaded by Zoe Davies and myself. The STARS survey is a survey to assess research satisfaction at Stanford. The first time we conducted the survey was in 2010. We repeated it with some more questions in 2011, and most recently, again in 2017. This information was recently presented by myself at the North American CF meeting. And so I'd like to share with you some of the thoughts from research participants. For those people that participated in research, 96% of those patients felt very safe. The remainder felt safe. So that tells us we're doing something right. 89% of patients felt very satisfied with their research experience. And of all the patients that did research, 98% of those people would do research again. So we know once we get you to be a research participant, you'll come back and work with us again. You will be my best friend. Okay. We also looked at patients that have not participated in research, non-participants. And we asked them, what was the number one reason for non-participation? And they said that they weren't asked. So we looked at this data very carefully, and we wonder if these patients were in fact eligible for any of the trials that were underway during the time that we queried them. We wonder if we're missing a large group of really interested people, and we need to figure out a way to reach them. And we also know from surveys in 2010 and 11 and 17, we need to do a better job about education, which is why I'm so thrilled to be here today sharing this information with you. So I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the fantastic research team at Stanford. So for just the next few minutes, if I can brag a bit about our team. We're a translational research center, and that means that we do research that starts at the bench and goes to the bedside. The number one person that isn't on this slide is Dr. Carlos Milo, the head of the Translational Research Center. But his team is 10 people strong. There are 5 research coordinators, 1 database coordinator, 1 research assistant, 1 lab technician, 1 financial analyst, and 1 regulatory coordinator. We are running currently over 40 research protocols that are both observational, remember we talked about those studies in the beginning, and interventional. Those are like the modulator therapies. We work on sponsored projects that are pharmaceutical companies come to us and ask us to do research, and investigator-initiated projects. When a certain physician has a very particular question they want answered, we do that as well. And we also see the entire continuum of CF patients from newborn to adults. So here's a picture of who we are, and I'll just let you take a moment and glance at these people. Carlos Mila is, as I said, our lead investigator and the head of the CF Center and Research Program. Zoe Davies has been there the longest, over 20 years. Jackie Zerbies has been with us for 15 years, but has over 20 years experience in CF research. Sean Ryan has been with us for 3 years, Wendy for 2, Daniel for 1.5 years. Kathy Hernandez is up there, 15 years of experience as a database coordinator. Monica Alazar has been with us for just over a year. She works with the IRB and the FDA, a hugely important role. Myself, I am a respiratory therapist as well as the research manager, and the best thing I do is work with patients. Maya Melendres supports us from an administrative perspective, and Shausha provides us with financial support and assistance. And then last but not least, our little lab assistant, his name is Daniel. He was just hired 2 weeks ago. We don't have a picture as of yet. So with that, I'll leave you the thought that when you call my number, you know me now, there's my face, and I'll get you in touch with the right person to answer your questions, and I would love to hear from you. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the research network that is present across the nation. We all belong to the Therapeutics Development Network. We are 89 centers strong, and Stanford was one of the first 8 centers. So I'm very proud to be part of that group, and it's very nice to have colleagues all over the country to be able to connect with. That's super important. If you call me, I can hook you up with somebody in Alaska or Seattle or Boston. We know people all around the nation, so please call me and I'll help you find the right people. I also wanted to share with you, I've been working in research for the last 18 years, and I can't tell you how very exciting it is to be part of the discovery of some of these medications. We were there in the early Pulmozyme trials. We did the TOBI trials. We do Vertex trials. I was part of the ivacaftor trials and part of the Kalydeco, the TEZ and the IVA. We do them all. And there's nothing better than to see a patient's life truly changed because of one of these medications, and to know that you play just a small role in it. So we don't just do studies, we're connected We love our patients. We have over 40 years experience. We're invested in you, and we have a relationship with you. And I'll just say that when you're in a research study, the most important thing is your safety. If you need to come out of a study because you're not doing well, that's all right. We don't want you in the study. We want you to be well. So know that when you're in the study, we have your best interest at heart. The study is secondary, and you always come first.